Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Our today's discussion is about the Economic and Social Council, third most important organ of the United Nations. The framers of the United Nations Charter were fully conscious of the importance of social and economic conditions for the preservation of world peace. Therefore, they provided for the establishment of the Economic and Social Council to coordinate the economic and social work of the United Nations and its specialized agencies and institutions. The Economic and Social Council is one of the 6 principal organs of the United Nations and operates under the authority of the General Assembly. Article number 55 of the UN Charter enjoins on the United Nations to create coordinations of stability and well-being, which are necessary for peaceful and friendly relations among nations based on respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination of the people by promoting higher standards of living, full employment, and conditions of economic and social progress and development, solutions of international economic, social, health, and related problems, and in international cultural and educational cooperation and universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. Now I explain you about the composition of Economic and Social Council. The Economic and Social Council at present consists of 54 members. Each year, the General Assembly elects 18 members for a period of 3 years, but the retiring members are eligible for immediate re-election. Originally, the council comprised of 27 members. Its strength was raised to 27 in 1965 and 54 in 1973. No criteria have been laid down for the election of members by the General Assembly. However, the General Assembly tries to give representation to variety of social, economic, cultural, and geographical interests. In addition, the Council can invite any member of the United Nations to take part in its deliberations on any matter of particular concern to that member without right to vote. The Council elects a president for 1 year from among its members. Usually, the president is taken from a country which is not a great power. All the decisions of the Council are taken by simple majority, with each member enjoying 1 vote. The Council generally holds 2-month long sessions every year. One session is held at New York and the other is held at Geneva. During the remaining part of the year, the Council carries on its work through its subsidiary bodies, commissions, and committees which meet at regular intervals and report back to the Council. Now I explain you further discussion about the functions of the Economic and Social Council. This council performs variety of functions through studies and reports, discussions and recommendations and coordination. First, it can make or initiate studies and reports with respect to international, economic, social, cultural, educational, health related matters. Thus, the Council has made studies regarding the problems of refugees, the word shortage of housing, the reconstruction of devastated areas, and the economic status of the women. These studies and reports are very helpful in taking these problems in action. Secondly, the Economic and Social Council makes recommendations to the General Assembly, the members of the United Nations and specialized agencies with regard to international economic, social, cultural, educational, health and related matter. It can also make recommendations for the purpose of promoting respect for the observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all. It may be noted here that the recommendations of the Council are not binding on the members. Thirdly, the Economic and Social Council can prepare draft conventions for submission to the General Assembly with respect to matter falling within its competence. Such draft conventions have proved quite useful device for the conclusion of international agreements. Some of the important conventions drafted by the ECOSOC relate to prevention and punishment of crime of genocide and protocol relating to the status of stateless persons. Fourthly, the Economic and Social Council explains and arranged different international organizations, different subsidiary bodies, and also convenes international conferences, both on its own initiative as well as on instructions from the General Assembly. These conferences can be both intergovernment and non-governmental and usually pertain to matters not falling within the domestic jurisdiction of the members. Some of the important conferences convened by the Economic and Social Council include the World Population Conference of 1954, the United Nations Scientific Conference on Conservation and Utilization of Resources. The Council can also call conferences of regional character on subjects like health, trade, transport, employment, refugees, stateless persons, etc. Fifthly, the Council coordinates the work of specialized agencies of the United Nations. These specialized agencies are created through intergovernmental agreements and have wide international responsibilities. Some of the specialized agencies whose work is supervised by the Economic and Social Council include the International Labour Organization, ILO, Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD, International Monetary Fund, IMF, World Health Organization, WHO, Universal Postal Union UPU, International Telecommunication Union ITU, World Meteorological Organization WMO, International Finance Corporation IFC, Intergovernment Maritime Consultative Organization IMCO, International Refugee Organization IRO, etc. It may be noted here that all these specialized agencies of the United Nations have their own constitution, their own budget and staff. They are distinct identities and are completely autonomous. However, they have been brought into relationship with the United Nations through agreement negotiated by the Economic and Social Council and approved by the General Assembly. This enables the Council to coordinate the work of various agencies. This coordination is essential because the activities of these agencies are not mutually exclusive and involve a considerable degree of overlapping and concern different phases of same problem. Thus, the Economic and Social Council plays a key role in developing the stability, progress, cooperation among states. Now we discuss about subsidiary bodies of the Council. The subsidiary bodies of the Economic and Social Council include 5 regional commissions, 6 functional commissions, 6 standing committees and other standing expert bodies. First, I explain you about regional commissions. The Council have 5 regional commissions. These are Economic Commission for Africa, Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, Economic Commission for Europe, Economic Commission for Latin America and Caribbean, and the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia. These commissions were similar functions with regard to their respective duties. The main objective of this commission is to initiate and participate in measures for facilitating concerted action for economic and social and development in order to raise the level of economic activity and advance the levels of living and to maintain strengthen economic relations among their members and other countries. The commissions can establish with the approval of the council such agencies as they may deem appropriate for the discharge of their responsibilities. Next important part of this discussion is about functional commissions. The Council has 6 functional commissions: Statistic Commission, the Population Commission, the Commission for Social Development, the Commission on Human Rights, the Commission on Status of Women, and the Commission on Narcotic Drugs. The Commission on Human Rights has a subcommission on illicit drug traffic and related matters in the Near and Middle East. The Statistical Commission promotes the development of national statistics, the coordination of statistical work, and the development of central statistical services, and advises the organs of the United Nations on general questions of statistical information. The Population Commission studies and advises on the size and structure of populations, the interplay of demographic factors, and policies designed to influence the size and structure of population and changes therein. The Commission for Social Development advises on social policies of a general character on vital social problems and related required measures. The Commission on Human Rights and its Subcommission on Prevention of Discrimination and Protection of Minorities submits proposals, recommendations, and reports regarding International Bill of Rights, the protection of minorities, and prevention of discrimination. The Commission on the Status of Women prepares recommendations and reports on promotion of women's rights in political, economic, civil, social, and educational fields. The Commission on Narcotic Drugs assists in exercising powers of supervision over the application of international conventions and agreements dealing with narcotic drugs. It advises the Council on all matters pertaining to the control of narcotic drugs and prepares such draft on international conventions as may be necessary. Next, I explain you about role of standing committees. The Economic and Social Council has 6 standing committees. These include the Committee for Program and Coordination, which advises and assists the Council in the discharge of its coordination function and keeps under review the activities of United Nations and its related agencies and programs. It reviews programs and procedures in particular sector on a system-wise basis as well as the interaction of different sectors in order to ensure that programs in a particular sector respond to the objectives set forth in the General Assembly resolution. It particularly reviews the program planning, implementation of programs, their evaluation and effectiveness of coordination machinery. The committee is expected to continuously review further steps required to implement within the United Nations the recommendations of the ad hoc committee of experts to examine the finances of the United Nations and the specialized agencies concerning the development of an integrated program and integrated system of long-term planning, programming, and budgeting. The Committee on Non-Governmental Organizations and on negotiations with intergovernmental agencies recommends the status of individual non-governmental organization and is called whenever it is necessary to negotiate an agreement with a newly created agency. Next Committee on Housing, Building and Planning examines reports and makes recommendations to the governments and United Nations bodies. It promotes research in the field of housing related community facilities and physical planning. Next Committee on Natural Resources lays down guidelines, examines reports, analyses existing resolutions, and makes recommendations in or as related to the natural resources. Next, the Committee on Science and Technology for Development promotes international cooperation. It encourages formulation of overall policy and evaluates and reviews policies and new developments in the field of science and technology. Next and last committee, the Committee on Review and Appraisal, which assists the Council and the General Assembly in overall review and appraisal of the United Nations development decades. The committee also examines the obstacles and reasons for shortfalls identified in the various sectorial and regional reviews and recommends on the basis of such reviews and its own conclusions measures to overcome the obstacles and shortfalls, including new or revised goals and policies measures required. Next most important part of this discussion is expert bodies of economic and social councils. Finally, the Economic and Social Council has a number of standing expert bodies on subjects like crime prevention and control, development planning, international cooperation in tax matters, and transport of dangerous goods. The Committee on Crime Prevention and Control advises policies and international action in the area of crime prevention. The Committee for Development Planning evaluates programs in their progress, analyses major trends, and studies individual questions in the area of economic planning, programs, and projects. The Advisory Committee on Application of Science and Technology to Development reviews programs and suggests practical measures for such application. It also advises on desired changes in the area of science and technology. The ad hoc group of experts on tax treaties explores ways and means for facilitating the conclusion of tax treaties between the developed and developing countries. The meeting of experts on United Nations program in public administration works in close collaboration with specialized agencies and non-governmental organizations and formulates programs in the field of public administration. It also examines the Secretary General's proposals in public administration for the development decades. The Committee on Experts on the Transport of Dangerous Goods not only revises and updates the list of dangerous goods but also considered the existing transportation practices and studied problems relating to packing and other related matters. Next important part of this discussion is relations with non-governmental organizations. The United Nations Charter authorized the Economic and Social Council to hold consultations with non-governmental organizations concerned with matters falling within its competence. The Council feels that these organizations, with their special experience and technical knowledge, can render valuable services to the Council in its work. These non-governmental organizations broadly fall into three categories. First, there are organizations which are concerned with most of the Council's activities and are closely linked with the economic and social activities of the area which they represent. They can submit items for inclusion in the provisional agenda of the Council and can also send observers to all the public meetings of the Council. Secondly, there are organizations which have special competence in specific fields of activity of the Council. They cannot submit items for the provisional agenda of the Council, even though they can participate as observers in the public meetings. Thirdly, there are organizations which can make occasional contributions to the Council, its subsidiary organs, or other United Nations bodies. Next, most important part which is related to the Economic and Social Council, that is coordination of United Nations system. The Economic and Social Council plays a central coordinating role with regard to the United Nations system, particularly United Nations development programs and United Nations specialized agencies. It also plays an important role in developing the political will and taking the political decisions necessary to launch and maintain broad international actions in which the cooperation of various parts of the system is required. The coordinating function of the Economic and Social Council also implies that it can obtain reports from the specialized agencies and arrange for the representatives for the specialized agencies to participate in its deliberations without right to vote. I explain you major and most important functions and most important role of the Economic and Social Council. Now I conclude this topic by evaluating role of the Economic and Social Council. Though the United Nations Charter has accorded the Economic and Social Council the status of a principal organ of the United Nations, it functions under the authority of the General Assembly. In fact, its activities resemble the activities of the committees of the Assembly, so much that often a charge of duplication of duties is leveled against it. In recent years, the Economic and Social Council has tended to assume more extensive role and held discussions on issues like housing, human rights, narcotic drugs control, water resources, population problems, trade, industrial development, literacy, refugees, science and technology, etc. The Council has also produced studies which have helped to overcome different problems through research, through data collection, through analysis of economic and social condition of different countries, particularly developing countries. On the basis of its deliberations and studies, it has formulated recommendations which have formed the basis of various resolutions or declarations adopted by the General Assembly. So, the role of Economic and Social Council cannot be denied. Sometimes it plays its role partially as a legislative. It is true it cannot make law, but it has played an important role in helping the members of the United Nations develop law. While concluding this topic and giving an assessment of the Economic and Social Council, a most important writer, Arthur Lewis, has observed, since there is absence of any power to legislate on economic and social matters, the Economic and Social Council is bound to be a forum of discussion from which recommendations ensure. Although the Economic and Social Council attempted too much and has many activities, yet it has substantial achievement to its credits. The UNICEF, the United Nations Refugees Fund, the Technical Assistance Board, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, and the Special Fund for Economic Development all have performed singularly useful tasks. It may well be that whatever the major political issues can be resolved, and the Security Council and the General Assembly assume a formal role, Economic and Social Council will come to the fore as the most active and useful organ of the United Nations. And that is the end of our present discussion.